Good morning. Today I'm doing my February wrap up, even though it's a little way into March. Again, sorry for the weird scheduling. I'd also like to just point out that that's not my hair, that's my plant being weird and being like, yes, sunshine that way. Not that I don't always have flyaways, but anyways, hope you all have been doing well, and let's just get into what I read in February. First up, I read Chances Are by Richard Russo. I know Russo is like a literary novelist. I feel like everybody's probably heard of Empire Falls, which is his Pulitzer Prize winner. I wasn't really looking to pick him up, but I was trying to find a book in this used bookstore for the airplane because I somehow didn't pack enough books, which is like, I normally bring like 5 books with me, so I don't know what I was thinking. But anyways, I was looking for a book and then I remembered that one of my things for 2022 is supposed to be like, yeah, we're trying to figure out literary fiction more. So I picked up this one and I can say I feel like I still don't get the hype around literary fiction. This is just, to me, okay, let me like do the plot first and then we can break down all the issues that I have with genre in general. Chances Are is about 3 men who are like in their mid-60s, and they all went to college together during the Vietnam War. So that's a big aspect of this book, is the sort of shadow of Vietnam, I guess. And they are all meeting up for sort of a college reunion in Martha's Vineyard. One of them has a house there, and they also are sort of working through some old stuff. There's a bit of a mystery element. They were all sort of obsessed with this girl in college, and she went missing, and they don't know what happened to her, so they're figuring that out as well. So it's sort of like part general fiction, part mystery, I guess. Which brings me to my issue with genre. Like, I think, to me, like, as far as I can tell, literary fiction is just general fiction, but with more prestige attached to it. I don't know. I'm sort of thinking of doing a series on like doing like a genre analysis series where I really try to like figure out some genres and subgenres and figure out what makes it that. I looked up the definition of literary fiction when I was like, oh, I want to do this in 2022, and literally the definition is that it's character focused, but I feel like all good books are character focused. Like, there's some books that you're just like trying to figure out what happened, and that's fine, but like I would say 90% of fiction and also good nonfiction is just like figuring out characters and character motivations. So I think that's an awful definition of literary fiction, and I don't know. I'm just having some feelings about it right now. Anyways, we're getting off topic, but this book, it was real well written. He really did get you into the characters' minds. I am not like super interested in getting into the viewpoint of 60-year-old white men. Like, that is not a experience that I seek out to read about, I guess. So that was maybe slightly underwhelming, but overall I think I give this 3 stars. I did read it at the beginning of the month, and as the month has progressed, it's sort of like maybe it's a 2.5 or 2-star book. I don't know. That does sort of happen to me with books. It's like I come out of it and normally I'm a little bit more hyped about it right after I read it than later on, or like it doesn't stick with me and I'm like, well, if this hasn't made me think more about like the issues brought up in the book over the last month, then like maybe it didn't actually do a very good job. Sorry, I did not actually come into this video meaning to trash this book, but it was fine. It was a fine book. It was a good book. I read it in like 2 days, or a day on the plane and, an evening. So it is fast read. You do want to find out what happens to their friend, things like that. The mystery bit, I can't share anything about it because I don't want to ruin it, but anyways, again, did not come on to trash that book. Let's just move on. After this one, I read A Rogue of One's Own. This is a historical romance novel by Evie Dunmore, who's a big best-selling romance novelist, big fan favorite on BookTube. I really liked this book. It sort of put me in the mood for romance in February, so that's fun. I liked it. This is the second in a series, and it's about Lucy, who's a suffragette, and Tristan, who's a a rake, a rogue. All those fun words that you get to use with historical romance. Basically, I guess this is an enemies to lovers story. Lucy is trying to buy a newspaper to sort of disseminate her feminist message, and Tristan is trying to buy the same newspaper to establish himself financially and get out from under his abusive father. It was a good book. Why can't I remember anything that happened at the beginning of this one? I did really enjoy this book. I felt like the characters themselves, I was very into. Their romance was a little bit more like, but I do think plot-wise, this one worked very well. Normally with romance, I have sort of problems with, there's always some conflict, like at the very end of the book, and then there's always a grand gesture, like it's just part of the romance genre, and I feel like a lot of times I find those bad. I mean, I just sort of like go like, yeah, okay. This one, like I feel like the plot actually held its own, which is a nice change for romance novels for me. Again, am I in a bad mood? I feel like I'm just like negging all of these books that I supposedly liked this month. Anyways, let's get out of that mode. I did like this book. It was very readable. I liked the characters. I will read more Evie Dunmore. I liked this one a lot more than the first book in this series, I think because I liked the characters a lot more. And yeah, I thought that they had some like really sort of interesting stuff about love and finding meaning in life. I don't know, like I feel like sometimes in romance novels along the sides there's like a lot of like somewhat profound stuff about like being a human. And I thought this one did a good job of that. So I gave this one 4 stars. Next up, I read my favorite book of the month and possibly the last couple of years, Seek You by Kristen Radtke. This is a piece of graphic nonfiction. Basically, well, the subtitle says it. It's a journey through American loneliness. So Kristen Radtke sort of has a couple of little vignettes about different aspects of American life and how they engage with loneliness. So yes, I found this book quite profound. I don't know, the art style and coloring is like pretty simplistic, but I feel like it got the idea of loneliness through. Like there's a lot of stark dark colors and like stark line drawings of faces and just here we go, like and a wave, like empty landscapes, things like that. Anyways, the art on this is great, and it really just made me think about loneliness and, again, sort of what it means to be human. This has a lot of sort of short pieces on different aspects of American life that relate to loneliness, like the laugh track and the internet and chat rooms and Las Vegas. In talking about it, I find it hard to describe why I found this so affecting, but I think it really did get to a core bit of the experience of the pandemic, even though it didn't really focus on the pandemic very much. Like, I think everybody has had a fair bit of loneliness and social disruption over the last 2 years. So I think it's a very timely book, and it really sort of, I feel like, got to a core aspect of the human experience, which just sounds pretentious, but it was how I felt about it, and I'm definitely planning on rereading it. I mean, it is a graphic bit of nonfiction, so even though it's a little fat, it's like an afternoon or two of reading. All that being said, I really, really recommend you read this one. I need to think about a better way to describe this book, but it really was probably my favorite of the last 2 years. So, highly recommend! Okay, that's it. After that, I read Well Met by DeLuca. This is another romance novel about a woman who moved to Maryland to help her sister out after she had an accident. And in helping out and shuttling her niece around and things like that, she gets roped into volunteering for the local Renaissance fair, which is a really fun setting. I was not expecting to enjoy that as much as I did. But this is a romance novel, so it's enemies to lovers. Emily is the protagonist, so she butts heads with the Renaissance Fair organizer, and as you can imagine, romance ensues. I'm not a real big fan of the enemies to lovers trope, but I did read 3 romance novels with it this month, so there we go. I think it is just sort of a little bit difficult to avoid. I've realized, I thought the reason that I didn't like it is that, like, if somebody really does something unforgivable, I always have a hard time getting on board by the end with like them getting together. But I realized that that's never actually the case with enemies to lovers stories. It's always that, like, it's a big misunderstanding and the guy's been in love with the woman for the whole time and, like, blah blah blah. And I find that frustrating because it's like, just like talk to each other, just like be fucking adults, you know what I mean? And in order to be romantic, why did the dude have to be obsessed for like the whole time? I don't know, it's just sort of boring to me. But anyways, again, I'm being critical today, sorry. Well Met is very cute. You know, I liked the setting. The main romance, it was a light fluffy read. I think I gave it 3 stars. I enjoyed it. And then the last book that I read this month was Beach Read by Emily Henry, which Michelle's just gonna hi. Hello. This was a really good book. I feel like I remember when this came out, people were not pleased with it on BookTube in general. And I think that it has something to do with like the very romance forward cover, whereas really I feel like it was a little bit more towards general fiction or women's fiction, which is, if we're talking about genres, I don't understand. What's the fucking difference in between general fiction and women's fiction? Like, meh. Anyways, that is actually gotten into in this book a little bit. So January, the main character, is a romance novelist, and she inherits a beach house from her father, who's just died, but she didn't know the beach house existed, and it turns out that he, like, had like a second family up there, and this has sort of shaken her worldview because her parents have always been her proof that love exists, you know what I mean? So she's out there cleaning out this beach house, dealing with some shit, and she is next door to Everett, who is her college rival and a literary fiction novelist. So they do get into a little bit like why literary fiction is taken seriously, whereas romance is not. I mean, I think this is like already a big topic of conversation on BookTube, and I'm not so much a literary fiction or romance reader that I like have anything interesting to say about it, but it is like talked about in the book, which I appreciate. Yeah, so that was sort of an interesting premise. I do think that the book is a bit darker than it was marketed. Like, January in the beginning is like actually depressed. Like, you can tell it's not like fun, like, oh, I'm moping because I just broke up with somebody, but oh, love is just around the corner. It's like, she doesn't seem like she's doing that hot, which I also appreciate, like, meaningful depictions of people actually struggling with their mental health. Anyways, so I do understand why, if you're like looking for a light fluffy beach read, as they say, you might be a little bit thrown for a loop with this book. But I did like it. The main romance was also sort of blah. I don't know why I keep on reading romance novels when I'm sort of like underwhelmed frequently by that, but I liked the premise. I liked a lot of the like character work that was done and the character development over the novel. The ultimate conflict at the end was, again, contrived, but like, that's fine, whatever. It was a fun read and I enjoyed it. Okay, so that is everything that I read in February. It was a little bit more chill than January, but I also got a little bit more busy, so totally understandable. And yeah, if you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear how you felt about them. Let me know how your February reading month went, and I will talk to you later. Bye. My leg's falling asleep, so I have to shift. Ow, 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 ow. There we go. We're gonna film side saddle. It's gonna be great. Okay, we're good. There we go. Jesus Christ.